lot of people leap from a secure job into an untested idea, and they are victims of their own ego. Most people can only see themselves earning maximum double what they earn now. Psychologically speaking, hey, you're earning 50,000, you could earn 100. They're like, well, I guess I could. Know that companies are willing to pay for good people who learn more to do more.
Today's giant is our very own Dave Durand. After starting all over again at the age of 42, Dave has built himself up to be a 9-figure founder, an award-winning CEO, author, and professional speaker.
You clearly had an intuition that you wanted to become an entrepreneur.
I don't think I even knew really what the term entrepreneur meant, as crazy as that sounds. There are certain things that you can do in business where they're just creative. And if I would have known early on that, no, as an entrepreneur, you just go make it up. And that's what I did. I took pretty much every company that I have, I broke all the rules.
Welcome back to Durand On Demand. As always, I'm joined by our host, Dave Durand. Now, Dave, this is kind of a thing that we do for your radio show, actually.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a Q&A segment. But instead of asking questions from our general audience that we typically talk to on the radio, these are questions coming from me. And I feel like this is helpful for the audiences, because if you're between the ages of 25 and 35 and looking to start a business, a lot of my friends come up to me and ask me questions. How do I get my first $5,000 a month part-time? Mm-hmm. And, starting a business and so on and so forth. So kind of been there, done that myself. But I'm going to ask you these questions in series of the things that I tried to do myself. And I know that a lot of people are doing themselves right now.
So it's like Nico's questions, but Nico represents the millennial entrepreneur crowd.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a good representative of them, for better or for worse, I think.
Yes.
But yeah, let's go with that.
Okay.
Okay, so the first thing is, Dave, when I was working full-time, I needed to make some extra income. Mm-hmm. Now, my question to you is, when someone is in the position that I was in, I was making, and I'm going to be very blunt with the information here, just so we can get a lot more detail. Yeah. I was making about $45,000 a year with bonuses and all that stuff. Is about $60,000 a year. I had a growing family. My wife was working part-time. I had a son, a mortgage, all that good stuff. Mm-hmm. So I clearly wasn't making enough.
Right.
That just was insufficient. Would you recommend that a person in my shoes do the thing that I did, which was try to scale their income through the company, which, by the way, was not commission-based. It wasn't anything that I could scale exponentially. I just had to take promotion after promotion for a 10% raise.
Yeah.
Or start a business.
There's a third option, and that's just find a different job that pays more. So, and there's a fourth. The third part of the third option is to do something where there's a high commission level, or there's also the entrepreneur light aspect, which would be to become an independent contractor for an organization, which is kind of like being an entrepreneur, but not entirely being an entrepreneur, because you're in a system and you can actually scale it bigger. And there's a lot of good opportunities like that. So there's a lot of different answers. And I think so the one thing that I can tell you is this, and why you made such a good move. It is because what a lot of people do when they become angry and frustrated is that they basically blame their boss for just not paying them more. But once you own a business or a company, and you're like, okay, you know what? There's a particular job title here that requires a certain amount of talent and virtue associated with that. And that service we would pay this much for, and we're not going to pay more. I mean, just because this person made $1 million in their previous job as a CEO, what we're asking them to do is not $1 million service. Mm-hmm. Now, some employees don't get that, and they just get angry. I've been here for 10 years. You should be paying me twice as much. Well, if you want twice as much, you should have more responsibility and advance in the organization. I mean, this is a very real thing about this. Most reasonable people get that. They understand that. But there are some people that don't, and they just get stuck in it and angry. And so you freed yourself the right way. I think the other thing to note is that there are opportunities that, most people can only see themselves earning maximum double what they earn now, psychologically speaking. Hey, you're earning 50,000. You could earn 100. They're like, well, I guess I could. You could earn 110. Well, let's not be carried away here, okay? If they're earning 100, they can see 200, but not 250, et cetera, et cetera. So, but know that companies are willing to pay for good people who learn more to do more. And just because your experience, and maybe, and I'm not speaking to you personally, I'm talking to the broader audience right here, right? Maybe because your friends and your family network and the town that you're in is only used to being paid a certain amount, and so the teachers there would even say, you'll be lucky if you ever find a job for this amount, and they kind of reduced your thinking, or everybody was in a particular industry, maybe it was more modest thing, and where people didn't get paid that much, so you're just universal pictures like that. Don't get trapped there. There are all sorts of opportunities, and most people end up saying that at some point. They're like, I had no idea anyone would ever pay me this much to do this sort of thing. So free yourself from that. Learn the skill, find it, and go for it. I think one of the things that people put themselves in is this false option that you either need to stay trapped in that sort of thing and run a business, or run a business, where there's a lot of middle ground stuff. And the reason for that isn't necessarily because the middle ground is where you should land, but it's knowing, hey, actually, I have options here. There are options for me. Because then when you select the best one of those options, you have default other options that you can go to. As far as starting your own business, yes, I think that people who are inclined to start their own business should do it. But here's the thing about it. I always say this. It's the same thing with leadership. Like, there's a reflexive way that you can know it could work for you. If I said to somebody, I walked into a room, and I did it the other day, I said, hey, we're all going to go skydiving. 2 out of 10 people were like, yes, I'm in. 2 of them were like, no way. The other ones were like, what's it like outside and who's paying? Okay? So you couldn't take the people that are not jumping out of a plane and make them jump unless they were in the military, okay? And the people who want to jump, you couldn't talk them out of it. I mean, they're just like super excited about it. Leadership and entrepreneurship are very much like that. If I said, hey, we got an opportunity, you can start your own company, and you're like, yes, I want to do it. Okay, now nobody really just does that. They want to know some information, but their inclination, right? Some people are like, no way, my dad, no way, would never do it. Totally happy guy, very competent, great, responsible, good leader, just would never want to run his own company. My brother, the same way. Great guy, one of the greatest people I know. But then others are absolutely wanting to do that. So I think that reflexive thing is something to look at, because if you basically force something into somebody into something that they might not have some sort of natural either desire or inclination for, it's bad. So if I said to somebody, you should run your own business, and they're freaked out by it, they're probably going to be freaked out by it while they're trying to do it and be ineffective. So that would be one way of looking at it. And I don't hear many people talk that way, by the way. No. This reflective, instinctual, positive or negative reaction. Now, I would also say that doesn't mean, that's not a litmus test, but it is a test of direction. It tells me, but remember, I said 2 of them said yes, 2 of them said no, and 6 of them were like, well, no, it might have just been the group. It might be 3 and 3 in another group or whatever. But there are some that were like, well, give me the circumstances. What business? What kind? Under what guidance? Where's the money come from? How am I going to do this? And so if you're in that middle ground, you want to explore some of those things. But I also would tell you this, that a lot of people leap from a secure job into an untested idea, and they are victims of their own ego. And what is a much better idea is to have an MVP, minimally viable product, that it is proven, and then learn how to scale that, learn how to make it bigger. And if you can take something that's kind of working, like I'm looking at buying companies right now, and in doing that, I don't necessarily need a company that's massive or big, although I'm open to buying big companies, but I need something that because one of my gifts is scaling. In fact, we're doing a seminar coming up on scaling. Yep. So I know that if I see somebody that is able to do something effectively in one market, not through the force of anomaly, but actually because it's a human nature oriented type of thing, I'll take it by 10,000, and I'm fine with that. Yep. And I'll build a system around it to make it happen. And so that's what they need to be able to do. They need to be able to say, okay, this is actually legitimate. People like this product or this service, and they're willing to pay for it. It wasn't just my mom. Okay, it was somebody that is no reason to be loyal to me on that. And so therefore I could do it.
Hey Giant, Dave Durand here. Want to learn to become the best version of yourself so you can grow in the workplace, in your business, or at home? Join the thousands of giants in our weekly newsletter. Head over to leadinggiants.com and click into our newsletter. We'll see you there.
I want to flip the script, so I wanted to set the stage and now flip the script, because oftentimes you're the one asking the questions on here on Durand On Demand, and you're asking these successful entrepreneurs and so on and so forth, but it doesn't diminish the fact, but it doesn't give the platform or the credit to you and what you've accomplished. So I want to backtrack a little bit here.
By the way, for the record, I did not know Nico was going to do this.
No,
this looks very classically like the setup of Nico, ask me a question so that I can answer it in an outstanding fashion. I don't even know what's coming, but I just thought I'd put that out there. They will believe or not believe me, but
all good. No, this is unscripted. This is the way that a podcast should be run, in my opinion. So for the record, you've asked the questions, and so I want to ask you. You clearly had an intuition that you wanted to become an entrepreneur, or did you? And
no.
What led you to make that decision?
Well, I didn't. I don't think I even knew really what the term entrepreneur meant. As crazy as that sounds, I knew I was going to be in business. That I knew. I knew somehow, some way, I wasn't smart enough to be an engineer, and my whole family was engineers. I knew that I wasn't going to be an educator. My mother was an educator because I wanted to strive for something a little bit more. But I'm shocked at how ignorant I was when I was, particularly in high school. But even as a business major in college, not really getting it. See, I actually thought that business was almost like, and I even to a large degree now understand that this isn't true either, but you would think be more true, was a little bit like medicine, that there were procedures. And I do know that, if you're going to become a nurse or a doctor and you're going to go through certain things, you have to do them procedurally. And I thought business was kind of like that, almost like rules. Like there are rules to marketing, there are rules to selling, there are rules to finance. Now, there's of course GAAP and all that kind of stuff. There are actual financial rules you have to follow. But there are certain things that you can do in business where they're just creative. And if I would have known early on that, no, as an entrepreneur, you just go make it up. And that's what I did. I took pretty much every company that I have, I broke all the rules. I mean, I knew that all along, but I remember when the CEO of the Chicago Tribune called me and said, "What have you done here?" Literally, my colleagues and I are saying we don't know how to make money in print anymore, and you guys are growing as fast as you are in print. And I said, well, we're literally not doing it anything like people do print. We completely reinvented it. And he said, his quote, "You turned the industry on its head." And one of the reasons for that is because I was ignorant of the industry. So I didn't go in with any predisposed concepts or ideas of how it is supposed to be done and then have to break those rules. I went in and I said, here's something people need. Here's something they don't have. Here's something else that somebody needs, and I can connect these people to those people by doing it this way, and then just did it.
Wow.
And that is very different. And that's the spirit of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is the type of person who basically wants to connect two things, which is what creativity is. Creativity is like, to somebody in modern times, this sounds hilarious, but the minivan. I mean, the idea that all vans had to be huge was crazy. Well, then they invent the minivan, and it's like, okay, this is actually pretty functional. But then it had to have been a mom sitting in a meeting with Chrysler or whatever says, you should be able to get in on both sides. Because the early minivans only had a door on one side.
Yep.
And somebody's in there going, well, that's silly. Vans have a door on one side. Okay, well, how stupid is that thinking? And eventually it was like, okay, we'll put a door on both sides. Well, that's when the minivan really started to sell and they just got better and whatever. But the point would be that, thinking like the old way means making adaptations. Coming in new and saying, I'm going to combine two things not previously joined, like a minivan and a door on both sides, as silly as that sounds, that's creativity. But it sounds pretty basic. What does it require? It requires humility and it requires tenacity to get there. So if you're saying to yourself, there's a need here, people need a solution, I want to provide it to them. There's no doubt it's smart to rely on the wisdom of others and not reinvent the wheel. I believe in modeling. It almost sounds like a contradiction to say, I went in and I invented stuff. But it's not like I didn't use ideas from other people that didn't exist in some mild way and then just reapply them to different things and make them better according to the circumstance. It's like walking into a hardware store when you want to build something and going, gosh, you know what? We could use that part and just shave it down a little bit over here, and that might not have been what the part was made for, but you didn't invent the part. You just adapted the part, and when you take all the parts that you put together, you have created something new, but not on your own. I mean, it's like, human beings today. Think about a young kid today with AI. I mean, really they're going to really think they're smart because they just type in, hey, solution, and then a solution is presented to them. Whereas, hey, you know what? Let's start with this. Why don't you actually go back and discover electricity? Let's begin with that, okay? And in fact, the wheel. How about let's just start with the wheel, okay? Well, we're using other people's ideas in order to get to where we are, but then we need to be in the creative mode. I didn't know that I was going to be an entrepreneur until I actually walked into the opportunity to start my own business in the Cutco company. I sold Cutco knives, and they said, do you want to open a branch office? I said, what does that mean? And it was totally an entrepreneurial opportunity. I had to find my own office space at 20 years old. I had to hire my own employees in that office space. And I had to go from hiring the employees to hiring independent contractors to doing all the training for them, to do the recruiting strategies, to incentivize them in a lot of different ways. I had a program to work from, but I needed to make all sorts of adaptations myself and be creative within that process. So it was kind of entrepreneur light, which I really liked. And from there, I learned that at the core of all things entrepreneur are the ability to influence people. That's why this is called the Leading Giants, the Influence Mastery Company. Because if somebody were to say, what is the one major thing that you need if you want to build, scale, and lead any organization? Influence.
Wow. No, that's super insightful. I think a lot of people think that either entrepreneurs are born or they're made. And it sounds like there was kind of a combination for you where, you knew you had that intuition to, no, I don't want to be an engineer. I don't want to be a teacher. I want to go into business. But you didn't really have the that entrepreneurship thing. And before I jump into that, there's a lot of people online that say you're not good enough unless you're an entrepreneur.
Yes.
So I want you to finish your thought and then kind of talk a little bit about that, if you don't mind.
I think the value judgment of entrepreneurs being better than other people is a bad idea. So the value judgment idea on the entrepreneur thing, I think, is a bad thing. But you do see it online. Basically, you're a good person if you want to take the chance and be an entrepreneur. You're only a true man if you're an entrepreneur, and you're a bad person if you want to be an employee. I just vehemently disagree with that. I think that it is a bad idea to try to become something in an ambitious sense, meaning that you want to take credit for or receive a benefit from something that you don't merit and that stands outside of your periphery. But to do something that stands within it makes a lot of sense. And for some people, that's to be a second grade teacher. For other people, it's to be the CEO of an existing company. And then for others, it's to start their own business. But there's nothing worse than an entrepreneur who happens to have some money. So they're not inclined to lead or to build or grow, and they start a company, and you go there and you buy their product or service, and they're so bad at leading, and they're so bad in sense of justice, and they started the business to serve their own ego, and now you're the client or customer faced with the bad service or bad product and injustice because this person just wanted to feed their ego by being an entrepreneur. So what a shame.
Yeah.
And they're not going to find happiness in it. The example that I give all the time is, if you are a Ferrari and you tried living your life picking kids up from soccer practice and buying groceries, you're going to be miserable. And if you're a minivan and you try to live on a racetrack, you're going to be equally miserable. You're made by a creator to do a certain thing, and when you do that, you'll be more fulfilled.
No, that's good. It's good insight. I think I would have appreciated it when I was thinking about becoming an entrepreneur. In fact, for me, similar to you, I always thought of myself as a businessman. When I was like a kid, I saw myself. This is so funny. I saw myself driving a Mercedes. In middle school, this was the picture of like me growing up in a suit.
Yes.
Going to daily mass for some reason. I don't know why.
Nice. Nice.
And then going to the office and just like killing in business. What business? I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's just funny. You mentioned that you didn't know what that looked like.
No, I didn't. I was pretty ignorant of that sort of thing. I was just interested in girls and sports, I think, when I was young.
Yeah. A lot of businesses online teach people how to become coaches, consultants, or start a drop shipping store, or find unique, perhaps creative ways at pushing some buttons and making some widgets to make money fast. What's your take on that? I mean, you've been in business for a long time. Success comes and it goes. What's your take on that model?
Well, I mean, there are definitely, clearly, people, we're talking about solopreneurs, I call them solo prisoners, but that have found a way to manipulate something. Manipulation isn't always a bad thing. I don't mean manipulate in a dark sense, but to manipulate like you would manipulate clay to make a grate. To manipulate a circumstance in order to make money and operate independently. The problem with it is that they're almost always leaving something out when they tell you that. They're usually leaving out that they have to hire a few people, at least in a vendor relationship, to manage things, and that person isn't probably doing their job the way they're supposed to, and they went through that person. And you and I both know this, having entered this world of YouTube influencers and whatever. There's a lot of these people who promote that, and there's like this funny Ponzi thing. It's like, I'm going to teach you how to be an influencer, and my whole career is built on teaching influencers how to be influencers. And then teaching those influencers how to teach influencers to be influencers, or solopreneurs to be solopreneurs. But almost all of the solopreneurs that want to teach people to be solopreneurs are teaching people how to be solopreneurs who teach people how to be solopreneurs. It's hilarious. It's like, come on, what about the plumber who wants just to go from one truck to like 20? Okay, let's show him how to do it. But the thing that they also leave out is that, like, at a certain point, you have to be able to delegate something. Nothing is truly entirely automated. That is a lie, but it's an easy one to sell. Like, like if I that I believe in Catholicism because I believe that it's true. But if there are a lot of people in history and life that have decided to start a religion to make money, okay, if I was that guy, my religion to make money would be like the person who promotes solopreneurship. It's the easy one. It would be like, come to this church and say these prayers, and you will be rich, and you will become more handsome, and you'll be more attracted to people of the attractive to people of the opposite sex or whatever, and you will be guaranteed to go to heaven with all of your friends. Oh, and by the way, you can design heaven on your own. Wow, neat. Okay, so all of in other words, I can just become God. That's awesome. What an easy sell. The problem is that the truth is different than what we all want to create in our life. And solopreneurship is usually a trap. And it is not something you can do on your own. If you're going to scale something big, you can claim that you're going to have AI do everything and have everything outsourced and automatic. But even if you've got outsourced independent contractors, you're talking to them. And the relationship that you might have with them might not be an employee relationship. But if you're outsourcing your finances, you need to sign off on them and you need to review them. If you've got a customer service problem, you're either going to just totally ignore that person and refund them their money, or you're going to totally ignore that person and not refund them their money. But if you don't interact with that person, you can't have customer satisfaction. So you need to interact, or somebody else needs to interact. Not to mention the fact that it leaves things incomplete. Because if you're really going to be a great entrepreneur, you're going to be able to have people interested in your product and want more of it. And so you're going to have a creative side there to develop things and go further. So it is generally a trap that leads people into working 7 days a week. They can't free themselves and they have to learn to scale.
I'm glad you said that, because about a year ago, I had started a e-commerce venture with effectively was supposed to be a business partner, but he was more like the e-commerce manager. And without getting into the weeds here, I realized that unless I actually built an organization, meaning a company or some sort of actual enterprise, outsourcing the work to him was not going to be long lasting. And it ended up causing way more stress for little to no return. I didn't have anyone really effectively doing the customer service, doing the due diligence, understanding the policies within the actual, websites that we were operating in, and I had all the risk. And they took 50% of the profit, which is like a horrible deal.
And you ended up having months of really big sales, I remember, but then all of a sudden, all sorts of returns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so even with the e-commerce drop shipping model that's being sold online, similar to solopreneurship, I mean, you have to learn to lead people and understand who you're getting in business with, who you're outsourcing to, and what they're doing. And I realized I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Last question here for you. If you were to advise someone on scaling their business today. So I'm one of my trades was videography when I was trying to make some extra income at the time. It was just me, part-time, doing the work, making, $100, $150 an hour per shoot, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
But I realized I had a cap on my time. What would you say to that person who's making extra income, photography, maybe they can't scale their income with their current employer for whatever reason, they can't find anything else outside of their current company, but they're just making a little bit of extra money to pay off some debt? What would you say to that person? Delegate or scale, or what's your take on something like that?
Scaling is delegating, and delegating is scaling. So there's two things that I would say, and I give the same advice to the high school kid who wants to scale his lawn mowing company. Well, the number one reason that like a videographer doesn't scale is because they think, well, I'm so talented, nobody else can do the videography like me. My unique skill is I am so good at this. I'll give you another example of this. People do this all the time. And I've been in the building industry just to the degree where I've had things designed and built, and you'll see people spend 2 days painting over what countertop to get. It doesn't matter. There's really ugly countertops that would make the whole place look horrible and you'd walk in and want to walk out. Sure. But there's not one right countertop. There's probably 50 of them. And you can see them. Just pick one. Just go pick one.
Yeah.
The cake tasting industry is a hilarious one. Okay, we're gonna have a wedding. It used to be just, okay, we need a cake. You have a good cake? Yeah, it looks beautiful, let's do it. Now, no. Now, okay, you need to go through 15 million different things. And if you talk to the bride and groom are saying this: we need to find the right cake that's gonna satisfy all the people that go to the wedding.
Right.
Well, first of all, if you got somebody complaining about your wedding cake when you're there, you should uninvite them. They're absolutely missing the point of it. You didn't invite them to satisfy their desire or taste for cake, so it's just missing the point. Secondly, if you think you're going to get 300 people in a room and have them all like the same cake, you're crazy. You're never going to. Third of all, if your purpose is to go taste the cake because you personally love cake, and you want to make sure that when you are on your wedding day and you taste that cake, which represents your wedding, that you find it delicious, that's a real reason to go. I'm not even I'm not making fun of that at all. I'm saying if that's really important to you and you're a cake person, awesome. If you love the art and design of it, and you know that when you're sitting there at that table and you look over at the cake that you're about to cut that represents this day, which is so important to you, and you want to really be a part of that and you enjoy it, I'm also into that. I think these things are absolutely great. So I don't have a problem with the big ceremonial idea of the cake buying process at all, from the sellers of the cake nor the people who enjoy the process. Yeah. What I'm saying is that people think they're solving a problem they're not solving by doing that. Now, one of the reasons the cake seller does it is because they have people complain.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't taste it, then you didn't like it, and you didn't want to pay for it, and you're trying to be a cheapskate. So now I can prove to you that you already approved this. We use the same recipe. You can't get your money back. So they're using it as a defensive measure. I understand that too. But frankly speaking, the idea, and you hear people say this, I'm going to go pick out a cake that everyone will love. That's not understanding it. In the solopreneur idea, bringing this analogy back, if you really believe that the angle that you pick is the only one that works, then you're forgetting that right now there are, I don't know what it is, 250,000, I don't know what the number is, 1 million videographers, 2 million videographers out there. It is to say that you're the only one competent. You're not. Yeah. And you know what? There's another 15,000 next week that are going to learn to do it. Yep. Okay? So you can delegate it. There's somebody else who can do it. Now, what's powerful about the entrepreneur is that the entrepreneur is willing to do things that the traditional videographer is not willing to do. Most videographers don't want to sell. They don't want to sign a contract with somebody. They don't want to be responsible for scheduling. So if you can say, Nico, you like videography, don't you? You know, I got an opportunity for you. I'll pay you $75 an hour. How much are you making in your regular job right now? 25? I'll pay you $75 an hour, and I'll just fill your schedule with videography work.
That's good.
And you go do that now. He doesn't want to leave because he doesn't like that part. He likes the videography. He's probably going to be better at it than you because he likes it exclusively. And now you're like, wow, that's cool. I just sold that and I filled his schedule. Cool. Now what am I going to do? Now I'm going to find somebody to sell that for me. Yeah. I'm going to pay him $25 every time he makes a sale, and still I'm going to pay the videographer $75 too. There's going to be $50 left over. And if I get 5 people to sell this and I recruit 10 more videographers and I focus on how to build the inside of the business, and then I hire somebody to do the website, which I was doing too. Now all of a sudden I got somebody running the website, I've got somebody handling the administration, a little customer service and coordinating. I've got a bunch of people selling, and I've got a bunch of videographers doing the videography. And do you know what I did? I went to Tahiti for a week and loved it. Yeah. Okay, now I use that as the big thing that everybody's going after, but more importantly, probably what I did is I came home and I had dinner with my kids. And put them to bed. You know, I participated in their lives. But these are things that you can now do, and you can free up, and you can have a greater sense of things. And I think once you learn to do that and you learn to scale, you almost feel like it's cheating. It's like, wait a second, I was making it so hard. It is like I was doing everything at one time and I was overwhelmed by it. And you just start taking the things you don't like to do or the things that anybody else could do, and you start shaving those off first, and then you start to scale.
I know I said I was going to ask you a last question. That was the last question. But I do want to ask you one more because actually I thought of it. The last question. Anyways, what are the keys to a successful, long-lasting business?
I think, well, the keys to successful, long-lasting business, the first and most important one are honesty and truth. At the core of a long-standing business is trust. I know that they're going to make a product for me or a service that when I buy, it's going to do what it's supposed to do, and it's going to be at a fair price. To the degree that organizations go wayward from that, and they do. Even large successful companies that were built upon those principles now start to get into like crazy ideas, even like the woke movement, which is an entire lie. And that's not directly related necessarily to the clients or customers, but it's complete insanity. So it creates a lie within inside the organization, which eventually makes it divided and crumble. And that's why more people are speaking out about it. I mean, I was talking about this from the start in a way that I was like almost afraid to do it because everybody wanted to conquer. And now you're like this, every day it's like this CEO of a $1 billion company just came out and said the same thing, and within organizations people are starting to fight back and say that is just not right. What you're saying, it's a complete lie. So whether the lie is my product does this for you or my service does this for you, or within the organization I have an opportunity for you that you don't actually have, or you're going to be unfair to people in other ways, those things make business crumble. So at the core of a long-term successful business is honesty and truth. Now, there's more to that. Like, you have to have a good product. I mean, people forget that. But people also forget that the product only has to be as good as its price.
Interesting.
And this is not necessarily a bad thing. There are times in my life where I remember saying, I can't afford this. And I wish I could, and I wish I could have that. So I'm going to have to buy a this.
Yeah.
And I know that you can't make a this for this much. Or, you know, it only costs this much. I only have this much to pay for it, and it's only going to get me that. I'm glad I at least got that. And so you buy something that almost has planned obsolescence or is not that good, but you're thankful at least that you had it, and it bridges the gap to get to the next level. Now, if you advertise a product like this as though it's this, or you charge a product like this as though it's that, that's a problem. It's a lie. But if you're like, hey, you know what? We sell an okay house. Medium grade, if you pulled the walls apart and you would see the boards that we use, medium grade. Countertops, they're not granite, but they're going to look nice.
Yeah.
Floors, they'll probably get all beat up within about 7 years, but they'll get you through 7 years. And instead of paying this, you can be in at least this. And if you really take care of it, it might last longer. Okay. A lot of people are like, I'm in.
Yep.
You know, it's just how you sell it. And so that's why when people say it's quality and it's service, I mean, here's another thing. Nico, we have a very bad service. Okay, we can sell you a product, but if it breaks, you're on your own. You just need to know that. And because of that, it's only 50% of the cost of people with good service.
Right.
Okay, I'm in. I'll service myself because I'm getting what I'm supposed to get. So I think that, you know, people have to free themselves from the idea of entering the marketplace always with the best, unless you're talking about value. Because what I just described is value.
Yeah.
And value is not always quality. It's matching what you get with the reality of how you sold it.
No, that's good. I appreciate the insights, and I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, wantrepreneurs, whatever you are, if you're scaling a $500 million business or you're starting off with $500 to your name, and you're wanting to, you have a proven product and system in place, I think that the scaling seminar is definitely for you. But I also, want to kind of just give you the flowers here, because you're also walking a lot of entrepreneurs behind the scenes in scaling, and not enough of that is shown on Durand On Demand. So this was kind of like a little what do you call it, role play?
Yeah, and it's kind of it's funny too. It's a little bit more difficult. It's funny because we have new content for the material that we're doing, and then I'll get off this, and you'll hear me. I'm on a call, or somebody will come in, and they have this challenge or this problem, and we can dive like particularly into their. And you know what's actually funny is it's easier to solve those problems than it is to theoretically talk about them on here.
Yeah.
Because it's so practical. You're like, wait a second, I've got this so easy. That guy, fire him.
Yeah.
Move that person over there. Wait, you're doing this and then charging that? No, that's not going to work there. And it's just so much more practical and easy. And you can ask so many different questions that provide an actual usable outcome. But here we're always talking in theory.
Yeah.
And in order to protect clients from publicly sharing what they're dealing with, we're not going to go into the particulars of their story. But that was kind of you to ask these questions, Nico, and we're having a lot of fun building Leading Giants.
Yeah, and I've heard this said time and time and again. Give away the knowledge and sell the implementation, and that's kind of in a sense. You have to do. It can't be like a bland answer when it comes to actually addressing some of these topics. It has to be very particular to that entrepreneur, and because of that, we have different tiers and programs in place so that we can potentially scale Leading Giants to the place where this one man here can actually address a lot of questions from hundreds of thousands of entrepreneurs.
Yes, and it is not just one man, because anything that I can answer that I've experienced with teams.
Oh, yeah.
And many of the people I've learned from before. And if I'm outside of the range of a particular question that I have, I'll tap experts that I have that are in that, which I think is important for people to know, because you can't always be the one-man show. But what I can tell you is this is a kind of I don't know what this sounds like, but pretty much if you're an SMB out there, the principles are the same, which is why you can take people from certain industries that are good leaders and just drop them into other industries and they can lead effectively. Because the one thing they know is they don't have to know everything. And what they don't know, they're going to put an expert in the right position to know. They just need to be able to talk to the expert about what the outcome is, not necessarily exactly how they're doing it.
Well, you heard it here, leading giants, and dragon slayers. This has been another episode of Durand on Demand. And as always, Dave, you want to leave your final slogan here?
Yes. If you do that, you can be a giant, and we can go slay some dragons.